This meeting is being recorded.
All right, and now I know Karl might tie with us, but for everyone else, what you could do is in the upper right-hand corner, there's the view, and it's got the, looks like 9 squares. If you click on that and then go to speaker, and then you should be able to see at the top, it looks like we got one more person coming in. What you could do is look for Amy and click on her on the 3 dots, and you could then see where it says pin. And so right now I'm doing that. I've got Amy pinned, but now I'm going to go find me, which will be Margie, same 3 dots and add pin. So right now what I'm looking at is I've got Amy and I together. So does anyone else?
Mine just says replace pin.
Oh.
Yeah. Mine, all I got is you.
Uh-oh.
Amy disappeared.
Yeah.
'Cause I had add pin, so I don't know.
But I'm running a,
Maybe that's because you're the owner.
Yeah.
Could be. And so you'll
And
have
we
to.
can go, yeah, we can go back and forth on this one too. We did this one a couple weeks ago. It's just a fun tie.
Yeah,
Just
for
for that part of it. So we can go back and forth and we can stop if anybody has any questions on anything. I can see Carl's camera's up. Jim, are you tying or are you straightening out line? Jim Stanley?
Just straightening out stuff.
I know. I saw you like stretching that and going. I thought, oh, he's cleaning all of his stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
All
for
right.
everyone else, you could just do the speaker. And then I'm going to keep this the way it is for those who are going to try to watch the video later. And then they can kind of see.
yeah, Mick, mine, it only lets me pin one person.
Okay. So the video will show you what I had going, but sorry. Because I thought this would be kind of neat where Amy and I will tie at the same time. And she'll call out a material she's going to use. And I have a bunch of materials. I'll try to use something different. So we could kind of show that this is just a fly pattern, not fly rules, that you could change it up any way you want. So we'll start now. So we both got our hooks in. I'm actually using a streamer size 8. That way it's a little bit easier to see on the camera, but I think you could go up to 12.
Yeah.
Oh,
This one you can go rather large. And
Yeah.
so I'm using a dry fly, but I went to just a 10 on this one tonight. So, and the big thing on this, as far as I did go with, it's 1X long, and you'll see with the wing casing when we get to that portion of it, you know, as far as how that all flares out. Tonight's materials, again, obviously your thread, your hook, and then kind of tying in. And so when we were earlier on, and you guys heard me a couple weeks ago, so if anybody finds my Amherst head, yeah, I'm missing it. I've torn apart everything. I've looked in every single bin, and Amherst it's amazing just from the color. So it's like a pure white and the black in here as far as the feather, the materials. And Mick did send out just the 2 pictures from this one. So if I found 2 feathers of this, so I know it's around somewhere. But anyway, this you can use as far as the Amherst. It typically has some green feathers on it, some red, and then the whole body is like this white and black. It's pretty amazing. If you don't have that, golden pheasant works very, very well. And what you're looking for, again, you've got kind of that contrast as far as the orange and the black. And so on that part of it, I've got the feather up here as far as tying it in. And when I'm pulling this off, I want to keep everything, I don't want to jumble them up. And I want to keep everything kind of together, pull it off the quill here. I can come in with my scissors at this point and get the section that I want to use. And this is just going to be for the tail section. I don't stack these. I don't do anything and I try to handle them as little as possible. But what I like with that is, again, the orange and the black just gives some definition to it. So I'm gonna come off the back and generally on these, and I tie a lot of these, I fish these like crazy. And so I come off the back and it's about almost the full shank length. A little bit probably shorter. I'm gonna grab behind it. I'm gonna come over with my thread. And on your first wrap or two, you can position that again. So if it starts to roll, and more on a dry fly than anything. So I've got the tail portions of this. You can go lighter or heavier. I can come in now and clean that part up. And I also come up underneath this back portion of it. And just to keep that lifted, I don't want it to curve and be on the bend. So I just do one wrap underneath, and then I can go forward, make that nice and smooth. We're going to cover this with a lot of dubbing as we go. And on this size, absolutely could do a dubbing loop. And I often like that. I just like to do dubbing loops. I feel like they're a little bit more durable with a twist. And so I've already kind of pre-done a little bit of stack here. It's got some orange to it. It's got some brown, a little bit of olive, and of course some flash.
I'm gonna break in real quick.
Sure.
Okay, so again, she had the cool golden pheasant tail. That's kind of what I have here, but to do something different, so you can see what I've tied. Again, I've said this a lot. There's that Bonnie cord again that I've used for parachute posts and everything. If you ever want to try this stuff, as you see, I've got a lifetime supply of this stuff. And so this golden pheasant was about $3 for a little packet. I could give you everything you need for free. Just send me an address. So just to show that I'm doing something a little bit different. So there's an Antron yarn that I'm going to use for the tail and sell the pheasant.
Get your Sharpie out and put the highlights on it. You're all
You
set.
could, all you would have to do is spin it like that and then color it in and then let it go. So that's, as I said, I'll do things a little bit different so you can kind of see that this is a pattern, not rules to go by. So I know Amy's ready for dubbing, so we'll let her carry on with it. Once she gets, I'll do something different.
All right. So sounds good to me. So I'm going to do a dubbing loop on this. And we had questions a couple weeks ago as far as dubbing loop. What's a dubbing loop? Well, you have your traditional where you can put it on and apply it to just the thread. And then that single, it kind of binds to it. It makes like a thicker fiber. The dubbing loop, I come down about 2 inches and I'm going to put my finger here and I'm going to go right back up. And then I'm going to advance my thread. And here I'm only going up to, and you can see I stopped. And so I've pretty much taken this into thirds as far as where the material is. I have the loop, which is a triangle section right now with where my fingers are holding that. Dubbing wax, definitely recommend this. You can use anything from chapstick all the way through. And the big rule of thumb with this is you don't need to touch it. If you touch your thread, it's on. Otherwise, you've got a little bit more on there, but you don't see it necessarily. You just feel this touching your thread, run it back, and you've got enough. What I like with this, or any sword that grabs it. So as I come in now and I fill in that channel, it actually just wants to help stay in place. And you kind of just fill that and it'll balance to the most part. It'll balance on there. And now as far as with your dubbing tool, and I got one I'm trying to get used to. I like it. And show you on that. So again, I just want to make sure that all the dubbing's sitting in the channel. When I pull the tension on that, it actually makes that go tight. Grab in here and you just spin it. You could use anything from another Antron and run that up. Again, this is intended as far as a dry fly on that side. So you want this to be a little bit more buoyant. I've run foam up on these and run them and created a more like a stimulator. Come in and I'm going to cut between my dubbing tool, and now I can come in and I'm going to run that forward, and I'm okay with the buggy look on this. These are touching wraps. They're going all the way up. I'm not going to run this all the way to the head. And the reason why is because I'm going to be adding deer hair now. If I run this all the way up, it makes it a little bit more difficult as far as your deer hair to get as close as you can to your hook shank. So I come in, I'm going to lock that in place. Got my dubbing, cut that off. And all
So
that.
what was that first cut that you made? After
I cut the
you put
two.
the stuff in the dubbing loop.
So I cut the two. So I had it in the dubbing loop, and then I put in my hackle pliers to hold it between, and I cut the thread between where the hackle pliers locks it in and the tool that was holding it. And so I just cut right there. So you have an open-ended.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
And all these little scraps too, so they go over to the side because you can pull all this back out again. So that's not like a wasted section. That all just goes back to the dubbing pile, and you can remix it. So but I find that with the twisted, it tends to give me a little bit more durability on this fly than if I were just to spin it and apply it. A little bit more meaty, buggy-ish. All right, Mick, you ready to go on yours?
Yep. And again, I did that as well. Was it hare's ear plus dubbing. So basically the same thing you had, and it worked really well. But since you went that route, I'm going a different route. And basically, since this is a stimulator fly to grab some attention, I'm now adding, let me just get a couple, see where I need this so I don't lose it. I don't know if you can see this. This is like a high fluorescent with sparkle thread. And I'm just gonna now thread the body. So again, you could do the dubbing if you want, and then with the rotary tool like I have, that really makes it real easy where you just got to keep it in place and just go back and forth a little bit. But I would say because I have both, and here's some of my others. I do like the dubbing look better, but this is a good alternative if you're just trying to make, to catch their eyes. This fluorescent flash works really well. I'm just gonna put a couple more in.
Who makes that?
Man, you know what? There isn't a sticker on this.
Never is there?
No, and it's for sure. I got this from either one of two places that I always go to. It was either Hargroves or Feathercraft. And those are my two go-to places. So now,
John,
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, John, there's Vivus makes a good like a body quill, and these are really small. These are like micro. You wouldn't use this on this. You'd want something that covers a little bit. Oh, here I have one for my axle, and I keep it like what Mick was just doing. So I just keep it on one of my older bobbins, one that maybe the ceramics dropped out, and so it won't rip this. And it works great because you can lay it on there and you would work it just like your threads.
Okay. Was that manufactured axle, huh? Okay.
Yep. And Vivus does another one too. Vivus I like for the smaller because you can see again, this is like micro, and you can still get that color and flash, and you don't even have thread diameter to it.
Okay. Thank you.
And the same thing that Amy said is, you see, I left a big section up front for stacking the deer hair because the first couple I did, boy, it just no matter how hard I tried, I kept on crowding the eye. So I give myself way more, especially for a beginner still, intermediate. I'm giving myself a little extra room. So, all right, Amy, it's back to you.
All right. So now I'm going to do a wing on the back of that, and I'm going to use the calf tail. And calf tail comes in all kinds of colors. Believe me, $5 for this is a deal. You can see this other one. I don't know if Walt's on or not. I think the first time I said calf tail, he thought I said cat tail. No, it's not a cat. It's anyway. So I always tell that joke. So kip tail or kip and calf tail. There's a couple of different things too. Is at the top portion of this, it's very cow looking. You're probably not going to use that because if I use it right here and I wanted to make my wing, you can see what's going to do my wing. It's going to pull it to the side. And so you don't end up using at least the top inch of it. But then when you get down further into this straight is kind of the material you want to use. So
Amy,
I'm
I
going
know
to
how to
grab
straighten that cowtail out.
a steamer, I've heard.
Now, there's even better way. In fact, I just sent a YouTube video patch to everybody because Al Beatty on the last Friday's video, he demonstrated using a hair dryer or a heat gun on kip to straighten it out, and it turned it just, yeah, it'll straighten that out just like it was, like you wouldn't
Yep.
believe.
And it's amazing because it really isn't. And so here's a new one, and you can see how twisted this is. And typically, you know, again, we try to pull out these materials and we're like, well, I'm going to use that. Well, you can imagine try to use that for a wing, what your fly is going to do. I'd be curious with the hot air gun. And I saw he talked about that on Mike's call last week, didn't he, John? And then they were talking about doing different things. I was curious. I'll go back and check that too, or I'll look at your
May
link
have,
that
and
you
he
dropped
said
in.
he got the hint from Mike Kelly, and Mike got it from Angus McPhail. So
Yep. It is something where usually you just kind of rate that part off because you just think, I can't use it. But if that hair dryer or, you know, I don't know, women have been doing it for years, right?
But did he say if it
it's
does stays straight after it gets wet again versus some hair, when you get it wet again, it goes right back to curl?
you know,
Yep,
I don't
and
know.
that's what
a
it-
good question. We'll have to do some experimentation.
that's what I was actually just getting ready to say too, because I was like, yep. So it depends. Anyway, so I just pulled this other one out of the package, and it is something where I tend to separate out, you know, kind of that top part that I'm not going to use necessarily. I'm going to come in and I'm going to go all the way down in here. I know I don't need that much, but calf tail is, in my opinion, very slick to work with. So I cut a chunk on there. Hopefully I don't drop that out. And I have a chunk kind of to work with. I don't do anything with the stacker. I'll pull out the bottom ones, and you saw a few came out in that. If I have some real variance in here, I might bring them back up and try to marry the lengths more so that I get a better view of that. Again, pull out your shorter ones. And I do that a couple different times, but if you try to put this in your stacker, I could do it, but it's not going to separate enough to actually stack with itself. So instead I come in and just kind of layer it by eye on this, bunch it back together. So unlike with the pheasant or the tail portion of it, where you're not touching this, I feel like I'm really handling this one a lot. So on this portion of it, and again, it's very slick to work with. So your wraps need to be specific. They need to be tight. And on this, I like it to the length almost, as far as I don't want it to go drastically past this, but I do want it to kind of make that whole shape that comes out over the tail. So I'm going to go a little bit long. You can see a few of them are straggling, but the meat of it is right here, right in the center of the fly. So I'm going to pinch that. I also find I'm pinching onto my hook because I know I'm going to put some tension on here as well. I'm going to come up over the top. I'm not going to come fast because then it's going to roll it. But I'm going to come up. I'm going to wrap another one, and then I'm cinching that in place. I'm going to move back about 4 or 5 wraps on that, and that has then my wing to it. I can come up here. I know that's all set to go. Cut off the calf and again, just kind of build it in. So it's there. But as you see the profile on this, and I love the way it just plops right on the water. You can see I've got a little bit of room left, and this is very similar for me of how I do a caddis at this point. Mick, do you have, what'd you do on the wing?
Okay, for the wing, again, everyone knows one of my favorite materials, and like I said, I got a bunch of it, Bonnie cord, but now in white. So I just cut off a section that looks like this, and then you can actually pull the cords out. And I just use one of these and fold it over a couple times and just kind of fizz it up a little bit. You know, I could pull it apart and, you know, just kind of break it up, and so it's not so connected. And you tie in a section like that, which I'm showing right there. Again, now I have two Antron sections of yarn, the white and the orange. Again, just a different way of doing it with the Antron and being a dry fly. Right now, this is going to float forever. So that was just a different way of, again, different material. And it's readily available, and you don't even have to buy it. Again, I've got more than enough for all of us. If you ever want to try some, just send me your address. I'll send some in the mail.
And if you don't have enough, I do.
There you go. And I ordered more because something I thought about when I was looking at the dubbing, they actually have, again, Bonnie cord this color. So I ordered that, where I'm going to try to make dubbing out of that Bonnie cord next and see how that works. It just didn't get here in time. So that'll be another meeting that I'll try that. So
It's the world's greatest fly tying material.
it works, it's cheap, and boy, if you end up buying something, you got it for life. So again, I'm more than happy to share if you anyone wants to give it a try. So
Right.
up to you now. So now we go to the flag. So
All right. So I see Karl's doing great. I heard him already with the stacker, so he's ahead of us.
nice.
All right. So I'm going to go to the deer hair on this portion of it. And, you know, I think that there's an easier way to tie this one. So if you guys looked at the instructions, and I think tying in legs after you spun deer hair gets to be a little challenging. So one of the things that I do is I actually either make this just as a regular kind of exaggerated caddis for what I like to tie on a caddis. But so I've got my Primo on this portion of it. You can see this one's well loved. Love it, love it, love it. I like the color on this, so a natural. And so if you have a big flank of this and you're just kind of like, oh, but I like this one in the middle, you're going to be hating yourself later on, because, you know, kind of discipline, start at the ends, work your way up. And as I've said before, many, many times, so I label everything because I tend to keep things in bins as opposed to just, you know, in every single wrapper. It's easier for me to handle, and it's easier for me to get things in a visual. So I'm going to use some of my deer hair on this, and this one's been cleaned many, many times. And one of the things I do with the deer hair too, if you've got access to, here's my little handy, so it clears out a lot of this. We talk about this time of year, especially for where a lot of us are, and static is a good thing when we're trying to get it out and get all the underfur. Depending on when it was harvested, you're going to get a lot more underfur. Underfur doesn't do anything for the flies that we're trying to tie. And I'll give you an example of one that I got, and I wasn't super thrilled with it because it had so much. And when I'm talking about that, it's like these little fine. So can you guys see that? This is a lot that I'm having to clear out from this patch. So, I mean, it's great, but I have to clean this one, clean it, brush it. This is not necessarily save it, add it in with your dubbing. But as far as tying a dry fly, not really, it'll just impede trying to get closer. So I'm right here with where I want to cut. I'm looking for straight on that portion of it. Again, if I have a twist or something, again, steaming it It usually has worked for me to get things to kind of straighten out just on my deer hair. I haven't tried it on any of the other. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna cut a section of this one, and we talk about different sizes. A lot of that has to do with your hook, and I tend to go on the larger size to start with because I also know I'm going to clear. And so I'm just going to take my deer hair, I'm going to roll it a little bit, grab out some of the other portions that I don't like. I just grabbed a whole big chunk there. And generally on this, I'm okay with that portion of it. You can run it through a comb. There's other ones too, you know, like this, grab a little bit more of that under fur. And you can see every time you keep doing that, that's why I started with such a large portion of it. And on this, I am going to stack. And so I've got it in my stacker. And when I pull it out, all the tips are lined up on this portion of it. And what I like to do, just grab, and I'm going to measure that out. So you're handling this back and forth, but you want to try not to mess it up. If you mess up your ends, just throw it back in your stacker. Don't try to salvage that. That's what you have a stacker for. On this portion of it, I want the wing to be almost the full length here as far as with the hook shank again. So I'm going to take my fingers and roll my fingertips up, and I'm going to cut close on this. And I'm building all of this in. So now I had my fingers up here when I cut it, rolled my fingertips back, and you can see how that, oh, I got some of that fuzz up my nose. So now I have it where I want this positioned, and I'm going to come over the top. I'm not spinning this at all. And I have that great little kind of dandelion going in the front. And I'm not going to have to come back and reshape and do anything else here. With the leg, oh, wait, actually, Mick, what did you have anything on the deer hair at all?
Let me see, just to kind of catch up to you. I did do some of the flash, and I actually saw that in a different video. So I added some flash and tried to, all I did was a couple strands of crystal flash pearl by Hairline. This stuff's like my favorite flash. So I just bought another portion of it. And again, I'm just gonna trim that off to be about the same size as the wing there. Amy was stacking and I was doing the spin on this and then cut back later. And I'll agree with Amy on the portion of legs. As you can see, I kind of put them in there, just the normal tied in, but I stopped here because again, I will probably show you why legs are nice, but when I start spinning, you start losing the legs and they start going in all different directions. But I wanted to show you that at least. So I think, are you almost done, or because I need to still add a couple bit more of spinning? As you see, I could still have a lot of shank. So that's what I'll do if you want to continue talking, and then everyone could just kind of tune in and watch me spin more deer here on mine.
Yep, and what I found too is because the original pattern has you lay in what I just did, and it leaves everything long, so it doesn't cut it ahead of time. So you have both, and I think coming through to your tips here and then your cut, it's great. I haven't found any benefit to having this spin and roll as to the buoyancy on it, and I do like that on other flies, but this one I've just found this is a little bit faster. Or if I wanted to add something, I would actually have come in and make this very short, like what Mick did, and then add a second layer. So after I add the legs in, then come on that last section and spin it on just your last, 1/8 of an inch. And what I found on this portion of it is that it's kind of a fast tie for me. It's basically like a winged caddis coming off, except it has a lot of other dimension to it as well. And so I just finished off with, I've got the head right here. I've got plenty of room as far as I'm not going to crowd the eye on that. The legs, I haven't added those in yet. And there's several different, when we start talking about legs and you go into a fly shop and you're like, oh gosh, well, I need legs, and you don't know which ones you need, 4 different ones. So I kind of pulled a bunch, just as far as like, I've got a rainbow shimmer right here, has some great shine to it. It's a flat leg. It's typically used more for streamers on this. Absolutely could use it on here. Love it. But it is something that has a very flat, pancake flat. So you can see it on that. And then you also have some that look like they have some texture to them. So again, great legs. They really are, they work very, very well for this pattern as well. And it is something that they'll take on a little bit of shape. They float well on here too. And my all-time favorite for the yellow Sally that I tie, which is straight up a caddis, it is the micro. So they come very, very small, and you can see they're really tiny in comparison. For this particular fly, one of them that I like is more what you might use for a grasshopper. So it's a round, it's a tube style fly or leg. And I like them. I don't know why. They lay well when you're creating that. So they come in this little cinched, don't take the wire off, just pull and they come out. And the other thing is that if you cut them, then you have half a leg to work with on the other side. So if you can get in the habit of just pulling that through, and because of how I put this in, as far as with the caddis style head, I'm going to come around on here, and I've got it kind of proportioned on, and I'm going to just, I'm right at my 45 on here. And why I like the rounded, so if you go one up with how you lock it in and one back, and it splays that enough. And I'll show real quick on that, right? So not much to do. One up and one back. And now I'm going to go to the opposite side away from me. Same thing. So I bring up my thread. Going to come around. So I've locked in, and I'm going to pull it right back at me again. One up. One back, and there I've got my legs. And again, they stayed proportionate on that. If you want to add more exaggeration, you know, just kind of come back in behind. You can go up in a little bit of that head. You're not going to mess that up. And they'll stay, and they'll stay all day long, which is great. So now I've got everything proportioned to where I want it. I'm not going to shape out the legs yet because I want to get this off the vise. But now I want to pull back everything, and I want to finish this out. So I'm going to come in underneath. You can add a little bit of dubbing if you wanted to on this. I've got black thread in. That's just totally fine. I'm coming in at more of a 45 to make sure that I don't have any hook shank still showing. I haven't looked at it underneath, but I'm just making sure. And then I'm going to come in the front portion of that and finish it. If you are whip finishing on this too, the legs can be a little bit unruly sometimes. You can either use a straw that we did before or just pinch them back out of the way and come in, whip finish. This gets beat as far as just a fly, and it is something where I'll do 2 whip finishes. I might even put head cement on this one. They get hammered. And so it is something where I want something that I'm not having to switch flies every 3 fish. I want something that will last. And now that this is done, the legs are a little bit too exaggerated, of course. So I can turn it, get those a little bit more how I want them. And there you go. So again, looks like a caddis underneath, just from the brushy with the dubbing portion of it. They do float really well. If they get taken by a fish, you'll probably want to gink or do something as far as floating afterwards, just from the natural. You don't need to spin on this, so it is something where it helps with the basics of doing caddis, as far as just keeping that control on the head. You could go tighter if you wanted to. You could shape this a little bit. You can go larger, you can go smaller. So that's all I got.
Hey, Mick, where did you
Sure.
get those legs? And oh, it looks like Karl's got those bigger,
ones?
square looking legs.
They are round, it looks like, but they are right here. I don't know if you could see that medium round rubber.
Just a minute, let me get on you.
All right.
Hang on. And now wait, I gotta take a picture of that.
Can't do that.
Oh, thanks. Hang on just a minute. That's a lot easier to do this. Bless you.
You're welcome.
I'm looking at the image that was sent out by Amy, I guess, and those look square. They look like rubber bands.
Yeah, the white ones.
Have
I'm
an
looking
idea
at
where
those
those could be got? What?
Yeah, I'm looking at those two, and they do look the white square ones. I don't know where they got
Yeah.
those, but the round.
Amy, got an idea?
No, that's the pattern that was in the book. The green ones that I held up, they come in all different colors. So
Yeah.
they're more they're cylinder. They're not flat like the silver ones. These silver ones are totally flat, and you can see how the sheet they come on, and versus this.
Yeah.
But you could use the black rubber bands, like the hair tie kind. You could use those as well. There's a lot of different, and I think like what Mick's showing you too, is you can use a lot of different legs on here. I tend to stay away from the more flat on this because the profile when it hits the water. I want the rounded on this particular fly. I want the rounded. On some of the other ones, probably doesn't matter 100%. But there's a bazillion when you go in for legs and you're looking. So here's another one that I use for more of a crawdad pattern. Again, they're very, very flat. You can tell that by just how thin it is. And it's just off of a press. And yet these are.
If you want to take a look at this, I was watching you having troubles with, see, where was it? Oh, come on. You're having troubles. I don't know if anybody can see me on this. This is an undercoat rake for dogs.
Yep.
And I don't know if you can see the profile on this. Have little knife blades under. Is anybody seeing this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're not very expensive. They're on Amazon for what, $24? And I use these on my puppies. I get that under hair out of there, and that might work for that application where you're got the deer hair or the elk hair, and you got all that, try and get some of that out of there.
Absolutely.
That stuff.
Yeah, you can see this is a flank I haven't even really, I've used, 2, 3. I can see all my little divots in there. You're right. This one, and the reason why I go back to this one and why I love it is because I spent so much time cleaning it ahead of time. So with one of those, absolutely, Terry, you could, and it makes this fly even faster.
This really makes, I clean my dogs all the time with this. This really saves a lot of time and effort with my puppies. So I'm thinking it might work on that application.
I wrote it down. I'll be shopping on Amazon.
Now, Terry, I have one of those too. Now, the crazy thing
Yeah.
is I'll show you that because I use it for my cat and my dog. And if I'm just experimenting on flies like this, and it's like, man, I don't want to waste my good dubbing. What you got off your cats and dogs, I keep. And this is from my
I got a bunch of that too.
And this is my practice dubbing. So if I don't want to waste all the good stuff that I buy in packets, my
Yeah.
cat under fur is my practice dubbing. And believe it or not, I've actually used it on some nymphs and caught trout with, I call it my creature nymph, which is the name of our cat is Creature. So I have a creature nymph that I've actually used and caught trout on, but it's usually my practice dubbing. And I use that same tool to, you know, take care of the animals. But
What's Carl been up to over there?
oh yeah, let me add unpin
Yeah.
all of us.
Oh, look at that.
Carl, did you like tying this one?
Yeah, it was fun. I've never tied it before.
Oh, his looks
It-
nice. Wow. Very nice.
Yeah. It definitely has, it has a real unique, and even how mine had the rounded head. But Carl, I think with that one too, because if it gets submerged, you could fish that almost, I'm drawing a blank on, you know what I mean? One of those flies.
Yeah, you
Sorry.
could put that on. You could put that one on anything.
Hopper
really.
dropper.
It works really, really well for a hopper dropper, and then
Yep.
also the minnow muddler. So if
Muddler
it gets
minnow.
yep. So if it gets submerged and you just start stripping it in because it got caught too fast in a current or something, just start stripping it in and it'll still get hit. I know it's intended for a dry, but you can still strip it and it'll work.
Well, that was
like
fun.
them.
I was excited about getting home to try this because I had never done one of these before, and I didn't want to do it till we did it tonight. So that was
It
fun.
looks great. All your
That looks
proportions
really
look
good.
awesome.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Your guys look great as well. I like them. They'll work. They'll fish.
So I'm giving you guys all my secrets. So you guys will be out fishing dry flies now in February and catching them on grasshoppers like I did last week. I have pictures. I proved it. I got a text from Craig over at Hargroves, and I sent him back. I said, for all you non-believers. Anyway, it was pretty funny. I think this was a great show of traditional, which that's picture perfect, Carl, on
Yeah,
that one.
Karl, beautiful.
You see, yep, you see how I adapted it. You see how Mick adapted this too, to using different ones. And again, it is something, it works, and it's just kind of a fun one. It has a lot of steps, and you can see how every one of these steps is for any fly that we would tie, whether or not it's putting on dubbing, whether or not it's, you know, again, trying to work with deer hair and the different feathers in there too. So great job, everybody.
Yeah, it's a good
So
time.
what's our contest for next week? Pick a page, any page. Oh, look at Mick. He's trying to look. He's gonna.
It's like
Okay, I
frozen
got
the
one
book.
for you. This is more by way of a quiz than anything else.
Okay,
Y'all know who Ray Bergman was, right?
correct.
He tied a fly.
Not
that he
me.
called- Huh? Ray Bergman tied a wet fly he called the Blue Dun. So the quiz for next week is try and tie a Blue Dun wet fly in the manner of Al Bergman.
Yeah.
If you want a picture, I'll send you a picture of it.
Well, it's Al Bergman, you said? So
Yeah, Bergman. He wrote
he in the
several
book?
books. Yeah. Ray Bergman, Bergman, and the Wet Fly. And the fly comes out of a book that I've got called Forgotten Flies. And it just is the reason I like it is because it's a wet fly version of the Blue Dun that we all tie for dries.
Get it up there.
All right, we will send out a reminder so everybody can look and get an idea on that one. Ray Bergman, and it's called the Blue Dun.
Blue done, yep. And it's
Gotcha.
just, it's kind of
Ray
a
or
streamer, it's
Alan?
kind of a streamer pattern, Amy, and you'll like it because it's on a long, big hook.
Yeah,
It's Ray.
Ray Bergman, Bergman.
Okay.
We'll drop in a couple links too and make sure everybody
Which,
has
which
that.
book
And
is it in?
Just a second, let me turn on my camera here for you. Can you see that?
Forgotten Flies.
Yeah, you can see there's a whole bunch of flies here, and it's a little too big for me to hold up. It weighs about 20 pounds or
Yeah.
30 pounds. But yeah, it's all the different fly patterns that nobody ties anymore. And you can see it's a pretty good book. It's
Wow.
it's what we call a table book. And you can get some idea how big it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
So it's got some absolutely gorgeous plates in it. Let me show you this one. This is one of my favorites. And my wife got me this.
Do you need
quite
a
some time
jack
ago.
to jack that up?
I was gonna
Check that out.
say,
Check that out.
Put it on jack stand so you can hold it.
Huh?
That's
It was
beautiful.
on a jack stand, yeah. And there's the one on the bottom.
wow.
Aren't they
Oh,
beautiful?
wow. Look at that.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Er, All right. Oh, we'll be giving it a try next week. Anybody
All
can
right.
jump in and we'll switch it around again. So I'm gonna hop
go.
off. I gotta go talk to Tennessee. You guys have a great week and we will send out the reminder for next week.
Have a good
Thanks
week.
for
Good.
jumping
Good
in.
weekend, everyone.
Take
Tight
care.
line.
See you,
Thank
Amy.
you. Bye.
Happy Mardi Gras, everybody.
yep.
Mhm.